Welcome to Mastering Your Financial Life, hosted by Judy Heft, the founder and CEO of Judy Heft and Associates, Financial and Lifestyle Concierge. This year, she's celebrating 27 years in business. In every episode, Judy interviews professionals who help others successfully manage their financial lives. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Judy is the author of 2 books, How to Be Smart, Successful, and Organized with Your Money for a Better Today and Tomorrow, and her latest book, Mastering Your Financial Life Cycles, How to Successfully Manage Money in Every Decade of Life. You can read chapters of her books and catch prior episodes of the show at www.judithheft.com. Now, here's the host of Mastering Your Financial Life, Judy Heft.
Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to episode 72 of Mastering Your Financial Life. And I guess we just figured out that I've been doing this longer than a year. Time flies when you're having fun. So today I'm really excited to be here with Niraj Chhabra. And Niraj is the Managing Director of SideBar Advisors. And they focus on working with lawyers and helping them with their financial advice. And I'm kind of curious about that, Niraj. Like, how did you get started working with attorneys? How did you make that your niche?
Sure. First off, thank you for having me, Judy. It started off probably about 15 years ago. The short version is a friend invited me to an attorney networking event, and we were all having a good time. And then, somebody planted the seed, that you should teach their continuing education courses because you're knowledgeable on some of those topics. So gist of it is we figured out how to do that, get approved, and then just started getting invited to a lot of bar associations and law firms to do some of these courses, and it just grew from there.
That's great. It's a really unique niche. So, what's unique about it? Why are attorneys different when you're doing their plans for them? I know there's a lot of different aspects, but what are some of the reasons why you are working with them and helping them?
Sure. At least on the surface, you would think, okay, well, numbers are numbers and it should be more or less the same regardless of occupation. But when you dive a little bit deeper, you'll find that attorneys are starting off their career behind the 8 ball. Most of them are starting off with significant student loan debt, $200,000 to $300,000 sometimes. So this is preventing them from getting their first house. They're working so hard to pay off these loans that they're not really left with much meat on the bone to do much else. If they are able to balance, they don't typically qualify for vehicles such as a Roth IRA. They can't deduct the interest off of those student loans because they typically make too much money right at the gate. So from a cash flow perspective, they're kind of strapped. They're not able to take advantage of all the tax advantages that other individuals will have. Their kids later down the line are not going to qualify for financial aid. Even if they're good savers, there's a limit on how much they could put into their 401ks relative to their salaries. So we have to think of other creative solutions on how to get them to save for retirement. Once they grow, if they're becoming partners in their firm, they might have to buy into their firm. If they're solos, they have to think about all of these retirement plans that people take for granted. So there's a lot of nuances that pertain to working with attorneys that just don't exist with everybody else. I'm not saying it's unique to attorneys, but they're just not as common.
So what are some of the vehicles that you suggest to them if they, can't do too much more with their 401ks, and those types of things? What are some of the, tax shelters too are important.
Absolutely, especially, as they're in the higher tax brackets, depending on where they are in their careers. What we try to do is explore their employer benefits the best that we can. So let's assume you're in-house counsel for a firm. Maybe there's an opportunity to contribute to the after-tax portion of your 401k. And some people are aware of that and they're putting money into it, but they may forget that if they keep the money there, it's going to grow tax deferred. And then they'll end up paying taxes on the back end on any growth. Whereas if they take that money, roll it into a Roth IRA, which they are able to do, that money could grow tax-free. So it's something as simple as that. Or if they have access to something like a deferred compensation program, that might allow them to literally shelter tens of thousands, if not more, per year. If they're a solo practitioner, maybe they've outgrown a simple or a SEP IRA or even a 401k, and maybe there's certain things like a defined benefit plan that they could consider. So there's a lot of different vehicles. If they're in personal injury, they could take advantage of structured settlements, which allows them to defer money until a later point in time or retirement, things like that. So it's just a matter of understanding the individual's circumstances, what's available to them, and figuring out which one's going to make sense for them.
So are there insurance vehicles that you recommend for them as well?
Yeah, sometimes insurance makes sense. It depends on the individuals. I personally think that they tend to be oversold for their tax benefits. So cash value life insurance can be a fantastic vehicle to shelter some taxes. Though, like I said, I think that oftentimes they sell the sizzle more than they do the actual the meal itself. So I use them. I definitely use them, but I'm always going to check under the hood and see if it makes sense for the situation first.
So one of the things you mentioned also was that, their children of lawyers have a harder time getting financial aid. And why do you think that happens? Because of their high income?
Yeah, it's a function of a lot of different things, higher incomes, higher assets, even if they did qualify, attorneys tend, it's not uncommon where people make more money, they're going to spend more money. So their lifestyles tend to be a little bit more than other individuals. And as a result, maybe their schools are going to be more expensive and we just need to accommodate for that. So it's a bigger need to fulfill.
It's interesting. We work with a lot of attorneys, and we have a lot of attorney small businesses as our clients. And, they're not that savvy financially, even though they have to be, or they should be to help. But, when it comes to I guess it's, the shoemaker's daughter or son, when when it comes to yourself, some certain people they ignore what needs to be done. And I think I see that with certain attorneys where they're just putting it on the back burner. They're not taking care of their own needs necessarily.
Absolutely. And if you're a solo practitioner or you own your own firm, a lot of the things that you have to kind of be mindful of is, yes, you want to take advantage of all the deductions that are available to you, but sometimes it comes at an expense, because let's take disability insurance as an example. If you work for a corporation, you're probably going to get disability coverage that's going to protect you for, let's call it 60% of your salary. If you're a solo practitioner, you're responsible for getting your own disability, but if you're lowering your income so much to the point that you're not getting any meaningful coverage because they're going to base it off of your tax return, you might be leaving your family a little bit more vulnerable than they should be. So at the same time, it's going to be a major influence on your financial aid application. So it's definitely something that business owners need to take into consideration, and not just the year that their kids are going to school. You have to start this process a few years prior.
They're planning even before you have kids. I was talking to an attorney last night at your event, and it was interesting. He's just been married for a couple of years, but he doesn't have any children. He's trying. I told him practice makes perfect, though. But he's been trying, and he's already thinking about what schools, are going to be available for his child and all those kinds of things. So that's a great client for you, because he's really thinking ahead, where a lot of people just stay in the moment. I think it's great when you meet someone that really is planning for their own future too, which, sometimes people just live by the seat of their pants financially. And it's great to have someone like you to help them with that.
Yeah. And, even for myself, we have a financial advisor, because it's very hard to remain objective with your own money, so it's nice to have somebody else. I think that, I don't know if it's still the case, but at some point, finances were either the number one or number two reason that people divorce in this country. So financial disagreement. So if you have somebody who's going to reconcile those differences, it could oftentimes be an asset. So let's assume that you and your spouse met in law school, and one of you went to school at night and really worked during the day to be able to afford tuition, and the other person had somebody like their parents to help them with their law school education. Now it's time to raise your own kids and decide, are we going to help them with their education? And one person says, well, no, they could take out loans the way we did. Well, you should know better. You should know how much they held you back, because you saw how much you suffered after law school. Well, it helped me build character. Is anybody right? Is anybody wrong? No. But you might need to reconcile those differences, because it could definitely lead to some conflict in the household.
Absolutely. When I got married, my sister said to me, you're going to fight about kids and money. I'm like, no, being idealistic as a young woman, but that's what we fought about.
Of course.
Yeah, you can't help it. And, I think there's so many things to think about. I also, started out obviously as a solo practitioner until I grew my business to what it is today. But yeah, it's hard to, I have a bookkeeper now that does my books for me. I don't want to be doing that. I have an expert that works for me, and I I pay her to do my books and give me good advice, and also have an attorney and an accountant. And it's always better to get the professionals, even if it's your own industry. So that's pretty helpful. So let's take a little break now, Niraj, and then we're going to come back and talk some more and see what else we can dig up here.
Okay.
Hey there. I just want to tell you a little bit about my new book that just came out called Mastering Your Financial Life Cycles. And here it is. It's how to successfully manage your money in every decade of life. I co-authored this with my CFO, Liz Levy. And together we created this manual that's going to help you through every stage of life. We talk about having a baby. We talk about young adulthood, pre-retirement, what to do when you're at that age of retirement. If you're contemplating divorce, do you need an estate plan? We cover all of these, each subject in a different chapter. And I really think that you're going to find this so helpful, because at the end of every chapter, we have checklists that you can look at and you can use, and they can be a guide for you. So this is a wonderful manual that we've created. It's available on Amazon. You can also find it on our website at judithheft.com/book. And we're here for you. If you need anything, reach out. I hope you enjoy the book. Here's another picture of it, just so you know what's going on. Here it is. And I'm really proud of it. It's my second book. And I'd love to have you read it and give me your feedback. Judy Heft, judithheft.com, financial and lifestyle concierge, celebrating 26 years in business. And over the years, I've learned so much. And what I've been trying to do is impart a little bit of this knowledge to you, so I can help all of you become as financially organized as I am.
And we're back. We're back with Niraj Chhabra. So Niraj, I know that you work with a lot of women too, which I love. Are those mostly women attorneys, or do you work with any women?
It's mostly industries. Yeah.
Mostly attorneys. And how are they different? Why is planning for women different than planning for men?
Yeah, you would think that gender shouldn't play a role, but it really boils down to three key areas that make it vastly different. I mean, first, it shouldn't be a surprise. Unfortunately, there's still an income disparity between men and women. So doing the same job, getting paid 80% of what men are being paid, naturally, it's starting off with one hand behind their back. But there are other consequences that people don't necessarily think about. So, for example, longevity. There was a recent study that showed that women live on average about 8 years longer than men. And if you think about the baby booming generation, it wasn't uncommon for men to have been 10 years older to begin with. So what does this mean for the woman? It means, number one, greater likelihood of being a widow. Number two, greater likelihood of having to live off of one's Social Security. Let's assume their spouse gets frail and sick and needs care. She's there to take care of them, but he passes away. Who's there to take care of her? So we have to think about additional medical expenses. We have to think about additional long-term care expenses. We have to think about lowered income. Also, women just tend to wear more hats than men do. So it doesn't matter that, these women lawyers are the primary breadwinner in their household. They're probably still the ones packing their kids' lunch in the morning. And by the way, 75% of caregivers are actually women. So, when they don't have the time to dedicate as much towards their finances as other folks might. And, what ends up happening is, if women are the ones taking the back seat to raise their family, which unfortunately that's still the case, that it's not even, that's less money in their 401k, less money for retirement. So it just has a multiplier effect that really impacts their finances throughout their lives.
It's interesting you say that, because I just read something the other day was saying that, and I think it was just a meme, but it really rang true. It said that, years ago we had a 40-hour work week, but that's when the women stayed home. And now we have this 40-hour work week, and we're supposed to go out there, like in the Barbie movie, we have to do everything. We have to run the household, make the lunches in the morning, be there after school, hire the nanny if we're going to have a nanny, and hire all the people and make sure the kid is doing a great job in school, and make those play dates and, coordinate everything. It usually falls on the woman. Mm-hmm. So there's just so much for us to do, and it just, squeeze it all in. And we're trying to work 40 hours. And then we have another 40 hours of our second full-time job, or really could be our first full-time job. It's so true that women have definitely different needs and planning. So that's great that you focus separately on them. I think it really helps to know that there's people out there that, can specialize in women have, like you said, and I said, they have different needs. It's really a lot to think about.
Absolutely.
That's good. Yeah. So what are some of the other things are you an RIA?
We are, yes.
So you have fiduciary responsibility to your clients?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great. And so what are some of the other services that you offer, or some of the other kinds of clients that you work with?
Sure. We focus exclusively on working with the lawyers, and our practice is, we charge on two different ways. Number one is most of our clients are coming to us looking for that fiduciary advice, and we'll charge them a flat fee for that advice. If they choose to have us manage their portfolios, sure, we're going to get compensated for that just like anybody else is. If we end up implementing insurance vehicles like the ones we were talking about earlier, then we're going to get a commission just like anybody else is. But we're typically leading with the fee-based financial plan, so the person's getting objective advice that's in their best interest. But we're not going to send them away to do everything else, because attorneys are busy. They don't have time to go taking my advice and then going somewhere else to try to find it. So they like the idea of the one-stop shopping. But we try to not just help them personally, we try to help them professionally as well. So for example, we'll host attorney networking events such as the one that you attended yesterday. We try to do them virtually as well, once a month, as well as provide continuing legal education seminars, at different firms and bar associations. So this way we're able to help them, continue to grow their network, continue to help them get their credits so they could go back to billing and things of that nature. So we try to, help them wherever we can.
So Niraj, that's great. So how can our listeners find you?
If they go to sidebaradvisors.com, you'll be able to find, information on us and everything else that you need to know.
And what about LinkedIn? Can they find you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. LinkedIn.com/Niraj Chhabra.
Thank you. Thanks, Niraj. Thanks for being a great guest today.
Really
learned a lot.
Thanks for the invitation.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning into Mastering Your Financial Life, hosted by Judy Heft. You can read chapters of her books and catch prior episodes of the show at www.judithheft.com. Thank you for your positive comments and sharing this show with others.